Bonjour, and welcome back to Southwest France. My name is Gene Sandbloom, and 7 years ago I left LA and came to live here in the countryside in Southwest France. It's been an amazing adventure. I've learned so much. One of the most important things, and it's kind of obvious, you got to do when you get here is you got to speak French. My memories of learning French in high school weren't great. I just remember saying garçon and the teacher going, no, garçon. And I would go, garçon. And she would go, garçon. And this would like go back and forth for like 5 minutes, never understanding what I was doing wrong. But here in France, it's all about, especially in the countryside, just having the confidence to move forward with it. So some of the expats in the area, mostly that come from the UK, because I haven't really met very many Americans here, is they've lived here for decades and they still don't speak French. You really can worm your way around it with just a few words, but if you really want to have an immersive experience here in France, you've got to speak French. So living my whole life in LA, there was always something to do. You just never got bored. So when I came to live in France, two things happened. One, I left the US to come to France, but I also left the city to come and live in the countryside. So just as much as trying to adapt to life in France, I've been having to adapt to life here in the countryside. One of the things that I found, and this is why language again is so important, is that with word of mouth, there's all these things going on in the area where you can learn that there are concerts in people's barns, there are festivals going on in the local villages. And obviously, if you go up to Paris, there's more music going on there than probably is going on in most cities in the United States. So we're going to learn today how you can track down all these fun things to do in your area. So if you're going to move to France or just about any country, the biggest hurdle is going to be the language. I learned French as far as it goes in middle school and high school. Of course, that was decades ago, and you get really rusty. The good news is the more you're here and the longer each trip you make here, it gets better and better and better. But you have to apply some principles if you want to continue to grow, because you can come here, you can surround yourself with English speakers, and you'll never really grow and grow and grow to learn the language. So I've come up with 4 things that I tried to do myself to help me learn the language more. And the first thing is basic phrases for any country. So I've traveled around the world several times, and early on, I realized no matter where I went, somebody's going to speak English. English is the #1 most widely spoken language in the world. So you really don't have to learn a language when you go to another country. But every country I go to now, I have 10 categories of words that I put together, and I put it on a little index card and I shove it in my pocket. And by the time I leave the country, this poor little index card is just crumbled because I've used it over and over and over again. But this will help you get through almost any conversation that you need. So let's go down these really quickly, and I'll list them here so that you can copy them down as well. Yes and no in French, oui or non. Please and thank you in French, s'il vous plaît or merci. 3, hello, goodbye, is bonjour, which is the single most important word in French. You must say bonjour at the beginning of every conversation. Otherwise, you're going to get kind of snide looks. And in many cases, you may not even get acknowledged because it's just the proper thing you do at the beginning of every conversation is to say bonjour. And goodbye is au revoir. Numbers, you need to count to 10. You can go overboard, but I find that if you can learn to just count to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you can just do that when you're in the market or anything, it's just a little bit cooler than holding up fingers. excuse me. If you want to get through a crowd of people, you say pardon. And if you've bumped into someone accidentally, you say excusez-moi. Whereas these next few phrases will help you if you can just pull the noun out. So if you want to say, where's the market? It is où est le marché? It's où est. Do you have? Avez-vous? I would like. Je voudrais. How much? Combien? Or qu'est-ce que c'est le prix? And lastly, my name is. Je m'appelle. Je m'appelle Jean. So I really would hope that you apply yourself, grab an index card, write these basic phrases on there, and it doesn't matter whether you're going to Cambodia, Uganda, or the Bahamas. Well, they speak English, but you know what I mean. You always fill out that card before you go because the reception that you get back from the people there really just elevates the trip to such a much bigger level. So my second tip to help you learn the language a little bit quicker is to learn 3 words a day. And what I tend to do is try and match it up to what I'm going to be doing that day. So today, if I'm going to go to the grocery store, I might want to learn 3 words that are going to help me when I get there, such as ice cream is crème glace, or meat is viande, or a bakery is a boulangerie. If a plumber is coming over to work on the house today, a sink is a couleur, a bath is a bain, or a toilet is a toilette. If I'm going to go have lunch with somebody, I might want to learn the words for knife, fork, and spoon. Couteau, fourchette, or couler. If I'm going to check into a hotel, I'd learn the words for room, a chambre, a reservation for reservation, and breakfast is petit déjeuner, things that you would typically use in a conversation when you check into a hotel. If I'm going to the hardware store, I'll look up words that are going to be necessary for the things I'm going to buy. So, for example, wood is bois, or paint is peinture, or a hammer is a marteau. You can pre walk through your conversation in your head before you even get to the hardware store. If you come up with these words, and the real advantage of, you can learn any 3 words, but if you learn the words that have to do with the conversation that you're about to have that day, they'll stick with you an awful lot longer. So my third tip to help you learn French is, if they speak back to you in English, speak back to them in French. And this kind of ping pong match that goes on here all the time. Uh, you typically will do your homework, you'll kind of work a conversation through in your head, and then you will speak to a French speaker, and then they will speak back to you in English. And my advice is to continue speaking French. Speak back to them in French. This may go on for a while. In Paris, it will always happen. They tend to have a little more impatience with people that don't know French, and so they'll just cut you off and immediately speak in English. And I actually have a sentence for them: s'il vous plaît, aide-moi à apprendre le français, which just means, if you please, help me to learn French. And out in the countryside, there will be less people here that speak English. And a lot of times, if they speak back to you in English, they see that as an opportunity for them to learn English just as much as you want to learn French. So I've had many conversations here with French speakers where they will speak to me in English and I will speak back to them in French, and we'll just go with opposite languages back and forth for a long time. And it's not them being rude and cutting you off. They're just as excited to learn English as you are as excited to learn French. In Paris, it's going to be tough. I've gone back and forth several times, and I just try to put a smile on my face. And if you can get that Parisian to actually speak back to you in French, the amount of self-confidence that that does for you is absolutely incredible. So my last tip to help you learn French, tip number 4, is that casual conversation is important. You can go in your head before you go to the grocery store or the pool supply store or the hardware store, you can pre-formulate a conversation in your head and you can look up words. Casual conversation, that's not going to happen. If you're invited over for a dinner, if you're just going over to somebody's house for a glass of wine, you don't know where that conversation is going to go. So that makes casual conversation the most difficult piece of conversation in the puzzle of learning a French language. So if you can tackle the casual conversation, you're definitely going to take it to another level. One tip that I've learned is if you go to a movie theater here, you want to go to a VO, version original. So the movie will be typically in English. The great thing, though, is that these movies will have French subtitles, and movies are like wall-to-wall casual conversation. So you'll be able to hear the word in English, and then you'll see the French translation at the bottom of the screen. And I have picked up so many casual conversation words by just watching movies in French. You can do the same thing with Disney Plus, Netflix, Prime. They don't do it as much, but over here, if like you're going to watch Star Wars, if you can, the movie you've seen a million times, if you can go to the settings, you've already set it to be able to play the movie in English, but go to subtitles and see if that movie is offered with French subtitles. Because if it is, you can do the exact same thing in your living room that you would do in the movie theaters. Uh, One thing that's super important is that you don't want to surround yourself with English speakers. And that's something that's oddly really easy to do. There are an awful lot of people here from the UK that are buying properties here in France. They love old houses. Things are a lot more inexpensive than they are in the UK. So they're here, and what you tend to do is you get invited to dinners and you're going to surround yourself with English speakers. What you don't want to do is only do that. A lot of things happen in the neighborhood where you live in these villages. They have things called brocantes, which are little flea markets. Whenever they have one, you want to go, you'll meet your neighbors, and that's just places where you can, again, without having a sit-down situation, have a casual conversation with your neighbors. There are festivals all the time that are going on in these villages. Another perfect opportunity to go drink wine, eat a little bit of food with the people there. And then on the highest level, um, throughout the summer, they have things called marché gourmands. And these are where they'll probably bring in a band, the local people will cook little meals, and then they'll have these huge long tables set up, and you will go and have a 3 or 4 course dinner with wine with all of your neighbors. Just a fantastic opportunity for you to surround yourself with French speakers. They may speak a little bit of English. They may not speak any English at all, but you will find yourself picking up little tiny words from them, and also a lot of words that will come through that you've heard before in movies and stuff will just make a lot more sense to you and give you some encouragement when you want to speak French in a casual conversation. So those are the 4 things that I would suggest you do to help you learn French just a little bit faster. About 10 kilometers down the road from my house, a family has converted their extra barn into a performance venue. Their first barn is still full of animals. It's not exactly the Roxy, but there's a small stage, lighting, sound system, and enough tables and chairs to seat about 50 people. Most people hear about shows via word of mouth, and you RSVP to make sure there's room for everybody. You put €10 in the shoebox for the band, no tickets, no wristbands, it's the honor system. The type of performances are all over the road, depending upon who is in the area. Tonight, it's a Brazilian duo. One of the band members owns a house down the road, and the other was in town visiting. The show was in Portuguese. The venue owner set up a small bar, and tonight they are making caprahanas, the favorite cocktail of Brazil, in honor of the band. French audiences tend to be very polite, bordering on shy, and the room is full of kids. Throughout the summer, just about every village in France will host a marché gourmand. Large tables are set up, and the locals eat multi course dinners cooked by their neighbors. Tourists passing through the area are always welcomed, and you'll be drinking wine from the vineyards surrounding the parking lot. There's always music by a local band, and both line and swing dancing. If you're lucky, there's a small bistro or gastropub with live music in a nearby village. In the hilltop village of Belay, a Dutch family opened up Le Couvent a few years ago, and word has spread very quickly. Friday nights are often kicked off by a local band with lots of beer, wine, tapas, and dancing. In the winter, the music moves inside for more intimate performances. Almost all the bands just perform cover songs. The first day of summer is Fête de la Musique Day, a huge party in the larger villages throughout France. Carnival rides are brought in for the kids, and at night there are outdoor picnics with free flowing wine and free music on stages set up throughout the town. The Paris Fête de la Musique is huge, often attracting tens of thousands of music fans. It started in 1982, and you will find stages set up on the steps of monuments and in famous parks all over Paris. The first day of summer in 2024 is June 20th, about a month before the 2024 Paris Olympics kick off. All over France, but especially in Paris, many of the old churches become classical music venues throughout the year. The classical music is typically the greatest hits with lots of Bach and Mozart, and they rarely last more than 90 minutes. This is as much about the vibe as it is about the music. Schedules and ticket purchases links can be found at classictic.com and theaterinparis.com. You can even find free classical performances at parisjetem.com, iloveparis.com. Paris is home to ticketed music festivals throughout the summer. Annual festivals include Lollapalooza Paris for rock and alternative music over 3 days in late July. Rock Insane, see what they did there? For rock and alternative fans, over 4 days in late August. The We Love Green Festival is for an eclectic mix of multilingual artists and ecotourism combined over 3 days in early June. Marvelous Island is an electronic festival about 30 minutes outside of Paris with camping in mid May. Solidays is a huge pop and beats festival promoting solidarity in Paris over 3 days in late June. The Pitchfork Music Festival is an indie rock festival that takes over about a dozen different indoor venues in Paris for 7 nights in November. The Peacock Society is a 2 night electronic festival in Paris in mid July. I've been, and it's a hardcore music festival. No drugs or Alice in Wonderland costumes. And lastly, just about every band touring the world will make stops in Paris or Lyon, and often Bordeaux and Marseille as well. Your best bet is to go to the websites songkick.com or polestar.com. You can search your favorite bands or search by city. It's always good to sign up for your favorite band's email list so you don't miss an on sale. In general, I find concert tickets a bit cheaper and easier to get in France than I do in the US. I've seen my favorite band, Sigur Rós from Iceland, at a 2,000-year-old Roman amphitheater in Lyon, the Chemical Brothers at the 6,000-seat Zenith in Paris, and Coldplay at the 80,000-seat Stade de France. In that case, the French fans were anything but shy and reserved. Thanks for watching. Please like this video if you found any of this information helpful today. Next week, we're going to take a road trip. We're going into Paris. About every 2 months, I take the train in and always try to find something new to do while I'm there. If you don't want to miss it, please hit subscribe.